This is chapter number 1, Democracy in the Contemporary World. Democracy in the contemporary world. Contemporary means same time. Different parts of the world, what was happening at that time when we consider democracy. Before we go ahead, the main idea or the main key of this discussion is democracy. This democracy is the word which has come from demokratia. It's a Greek word. Demokratia means rule by people. So what we are trying to know here is that the struggle of democracy, that is the rule by people like us, the citizen, the people, normal people, the expansion of this democracy has not been smooth and straight if we talk about history. Right now, if you see the map of the world, most of the countries, they are democratic. They follow this rule by people. There are several ups and downs in different countries, and if you still see now, the country which is having democracy, it may be unstable or it may be uncertain. In order to understand the idea of democracy or how the things change, what is the democracy and how it is different from the one ruler or military rulers, we start with the democracy in Chile. Now, Chile is a country in South America. This is the person we are going to talk about a lot. He is called Salvador Allende. Salvador Allende, he was the founder, leader of Socialist Party of Chile. Socialist Party of Chile, Salvador Allende, he was the founder leader. So in 1970, there was a proper election in Chile and he won the presidential election. That means he became the president. So after becoming president, he adopted various several policies to help poor and the workers. So the poor, that is the destitutes, and those who really need the president to work for them or the government to work for them, Allende did exactly that. So he worked for the poor and the workers. So what he did, he reformed the education system, which was very essential for everyone to grow, and the children who require milk a lot, so he made the milk free for the children. And those farmers, because farmers are the backbone of every country, and if the farmers are not having land, where are they going to grow the crops? So what he did, he redistributed the land to the landless laborers or landless farmers, laborers or farmers. Now, there was one more thing, copper, tamba. So foreign companies, they were taking away a very important resource, natural resource, which was in Chile, and that was copper. So he started opposing these foreign companies of taking away this copper, very important and precious natural resource that Chile had. But because of this situation, because he was working for the poor, Allende, who were not happy. There were people who were not happy. So because these policies were basically for the poor, the policies of Allende was opposed by landlords, the rich people, the church, and also by some political parties. As a result, Allende government was overthrown by the military on 11 September 1973. So it was a military coup. The C-O-U-P is coup. What happened in the military coup? Military coup means military is trying to overturn the table or trying to dispose the person who is in the power. Here we are talking about Allende. He was disposed or taken off from the power. So this is called the military coup. When military is responsible for doing this, it is military coup. So this happened in 1973. What happened? On the morning of 11 September 1973, Military took over the seaport and also arrested the defense minister when he arrived, that is the Allende's defense minister, when he arrived at his office. Now the military commanders, they asked President Allende, you have to resign or you leave the country. But Allende didn't agree to that. So he refused. He said, okay, I'm not going out of the country, neither I'm going to resign. So now the military did what? The military surrounded the president house and they bombed it. And finally, it was a very sadful demise of President Allende. Allende died in the military attack. And now there were other people also. There were generals like the General Alberto Bachelet and various other people who were either killed or who were taken to the jail. So Alberto Bachelet, his wife and his daughter, and the daughter was just 3-year-old, and they were sent to the prison. So please understand this, because this daughter is going to come later. Okay, so Alberto Bachelet, he was the, you can say, general of President Allende. He was being killed, and the daughter and wife were tortured and sent to the prison. So just remember this name, Bachelet. Now the military coup was led by whom? General Augusto Pinochet. Augusto Pinochet, he was an army general. And because Allende was working for the poor and he was opposing the foreign companies, now comes United States. Now United States has all the stakes. United States of America. They were not happy with the Allende rules. So they supported and funded this military coup. America, US supported this military coup. Pinochet became the president of the country now. Augusto Pinochet, who was general and who led the military coup against President Allende. So Pinochet became the president of country and he ruled it for next 17 years. So from a democratic government led by President Allende, a military dictatorship, that is, the government or the rule of military took over, and this was established in Chile. So this government was not good. Pinochet, that is Augusto Pinochet government, they tortured and killed several of these who supported Allende at that time and those who wanted democracy to be restored. So they were killed, they were tortured. You see this woman, she is going to come now, Bachelet. So what happened after that? Pinochet, he did what? After he ruled for several years, he held a referendum in 1988. So what was the referendum? Referendum means you go to the people, you ask them whether you want it or you not. You are agreement to what we want or not. So the referendum was that whether they want Pinochet to continue or not. So this was the referendum and he was highly confident. Pinochet was highly confident that people are going to say yes for him. But people have seen what Pinochet or the military government has done to the country and to the people. So they just say no, we don't want Pinochet to continue. And that is how Augusto Pinochet military dictatorship ended. And now the political freedom in Chile was restored. Then because there was previously army's role in the country's government, slowly the army's role in the country's, that is Chile's government, has been finally eliminated. Then the elected government that came to the power, they ordered inquiries and showed that the Pinochet government was actually very brutal and very corrupt. Now in January 2006, Michelle Bachelet, who was she? She was the daughter of General Alberto Bachelet. She was elected the president of Chile. I told you, the girl and the wife of Alberto Bachelet, they were taken to the prison and they were tortured. This girl, Michelle Bachelet, she was elected the president of Chile. In the presidential elections, Michelle Bachelet defeated one of the Chile's richest man, and this was the, you can say, victory of democracy. Now, what we saw happened in Chile, we understood what democracy was somewhat and how this military dictatorship came. Now we'll try to understand what was the situation or position of democracy in Poland. Before that, I want you to see this face, this person. He is called Lech Walesa. So we are going to talk about him a lot. Lech Walesa. So before we talk about him, in 1980, Poland was ruled by Polish United Workers' Party. So Polish United Workers' Party, it was a communist party. And in the country, Poland, no other political party except or other than Communist Party was allowed to function. That is why people in Poland, they could not freely choose the leaders, and those who spoke against the government or the leader or the party, they were put in the prison. So the government in Poland was supported and controlled by USSR, that is Soviet Union at that time. And Soviet Union at that time was a superpower at that time, vast and powerful communist state. So Poland was backed by USSR. Now how the things changed? There was an incident, strike of Lenin shipyard workers. So on 14th August 1980, what happened? The worker of Lenin shipyard, and this was a government shipyard in the city of Gdansk. All the workers, they went on strike. And what were their demand? There was a women operator or women worker who was a crane operator, and she was unjustly, that is without proper justification, dismissed or fired from the service. So all these who went on the strike, they wanted this women to come back, or they want them, the prashasan or their administration, to take these women back. But now, as I said, in Poland, it was not possible. It was Communist Party and the rule was very different. The strike were illegal, right? So the strike was illegal because the trade unions in the independent of the ruling party was not allowed to in Poland. So only the trade unions belonging to Communist Party in Poland, they are allowed to function. Others were not. So the strike by any other trade union is not allowed. So this was regarded as, you can say, the strike, the government said it is unfair. Let me tell you about this trade union. Trade union means people who are doing trade, they come together and they make an organization, and then they talk about themselves. They talk to the government, to the administration about their problems and making new policies. So this is the trade unions, and they are benefited by themselves. So Lech Walesa, I told you, he is going to come now, Lech Walesa. And he was actually an electrician, former electrician of the same Lenin shipyard, and he was dismissed from the service in 1976. Why? For demanding higher pay, he joined the strikers. Because he was being dismissed from the job because he asked for a higher salary. Now he saw that strike is going on, so he joined the strikers. Now this strike was not normal. It actually spread across the whole city. And now the demand was not only to take back the women, the crane operator. They wanted to they wanted the right for making an independent trade union. So they wanted that the government should allow to form a trade union other than Communist Party backed. They also demanded all the political prisoners which are held by the government should be released. and also the press, which was being highly censored, they wanted to end this censorship. When it grew, means this strike actually grow, and finally government has to bow down. So they sat with Lech Walesa, who was leading this strike now, and the workers which are led by Walesa. So government and Walesa with other people with Walesa, they sat with the government and they formed a 21-point agreement, and they signed a 21-point agreement with the government, and finally Walesa and their people, they ended their strike. Now the government agreed to recognize the workers' right to form independent trade unions. So trade union can be found now and the strikes can be done. So these were being agreed by the government. After this agreement of 21-point agreement, we call it, and this happened at Gdansk. So after this Gdansk agreement, it was being signed, a new trade union called Solidarity. It is called as Solidarność in Polish. See, if you see, here it is Solidarność. So it is called in Polish. So there was a new trade union called Solidarity was formed. It was the first time any independent trade union called Solidarity was formed in any of the communist states, right? Because in communist state, it is not possible to have any other trade unions. But Solidarity was being formed. And who headed this? Lech Walesa. And there was a revelation of widespread corruption and mismanagement in the government, made matters worse for the rulers. Because now the rulers can see that everyone can see they are corrupt, they are doing mismanagement. So the government led by General Jaruzelski, he got very furious, he got anxious. So what he did? He imposed martial law in December 1981. So because Solidarity was the reason why all these things was happening, General Jaruzelski, he put thousands of Solidarity members into prison. Then the freedom to organize, protest and express opinions, which was already given in 21-point program that was being agreed in the Gdansk agreement, it was once again taken away from the people of the country, or you can say the people who are there, who are fighting against getting all this. So they were again, this freedom to organize, protest and express opinions were taken away from them. Then what happened? How did democracy again got restored in Poland? So in 1988, Solidarity again organized these strikes. Why? There were two reasons. First, the government, Polish government, it got weaker. And then USSR, it also got weaker. Actually, it disintegrated into various, you can say, countries. So in the Soviet Union, the support from Soviet Union was not there. The Soviet Union was about to be broken and the economy was in decline and the Polish government was weaker. So now the Solidarity, that was the trade union group held by or headed by Lech Walesa, they organized the strikes. So in April 1989, another round of negotiation with Lech Walesa, it resulted in the agreement for free elections. Now the government agreed, okay, we can have or we can hold the free elections. Now Solidarity, it contested in all the 100 Senate seats, and the surprise was 99 seats were won by Solidarity. In October 1990, Poland has its first presidential elections in which more than one party can participate, could contest. And this was the beginning of democracy. Finally, Lech Walesa, he was elected president of Poland. So what are the things we got from here? There are two key features of democracy. Democracy is a form of government that allows people to choose their rulers. Rulers are not just coming by themselves, they are sent or elected or chosen by the people. So two features of democracy is only leaders elected by the people, the general public, should rule the country. This is the first one. And the second one has everyone has or have to have freedom. So people have the freedom to express their views, the freedom to organize, and also to protest if something is going wrong. Coming to the changing map of democracy. So how did democracy changed? Means from 1900s to the present situation, how the global level experienced the change in the democracy, or different countries became democratic. So in 1900, there were few democracies in the world, like USA, France, England. So in 1900s, these were few countries who were democracies. In 1950s, many Asian countries which got independence from colonization. Colonies are, so you have seen different European countries, they had made colonies in different countries. So finally, when these countries got independence, they opted for democracy, that is Loktantra. So countries like India, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, Myanmar, etc., they opted for democracy. That is why India is a democracy now. In 1975, more countries opted democracy, but there were, various countries, the examples are the democratic government was overthrown by the dictators. By 2000, more than half of the countries of the world, that is 50% of the countries of the world, they followed democracy. And then came the USSR disintegration. The disintegration of USSR and support from other democratic countries paved way of democracy. So this is the map of world, and these are the red you can say shaded countries. These are democratic government in 1900s and 1950s, and these are the countries which were democratic government, having democratic government in 1950s, but not before that. That is not in 1900s. That is why we, in 1947, after that only we opted for democracy. So these are after 1950, but these red ones were way back they were democracies. This is the picture showing democratic government in 1975. These are the places, and after that, if you see in 2000, all are these countries, if you see, they are democratic countries, or they opted for democracy. So we saw the map, how from 1900 it changed to 1950 and then the 1975 and present scenario, that is how democracy spread around the world, global level. Now what are the phases in the expansion of democracy? All started with the French Revolution in 1789, and this did not establish a very secure and stable democracy in France. So that was not a proper democracy to be talked about. But still, this revolution, it inspired many struggles for democracy all over the region, Europe. And through the 18th and 19th century, there were so many events, series of political events that reduced the power of monarchy, and also those who were feudal lords, or you can say those for centuries they were having power. So their power were reduced. In 1776, the British colonies in North America, they declared themselves independent. So in North America, most of these regions were controlled by British. So they were British colonies, and they declared themselves independent from the British colonies, and they came together and they said, we will form USA. So they formed the United States of America. So they adopted a democratic constitution in 1787 USA, but there was you can say a hitch, or there was a catch, that the right to vote was limited only to few men, not all men, not all women. Only, you can say, those having a prescribed amount of money, or they earn prescribed amount of money, they were given the power or right to vote. So it was not an universal adult franchise or universal suffrage. So these were not allowed to vote. Only few people were allowed to vote. So the nation which is struggling from democracy wanted voting right granted universally to all adults. So whichever nation or whichever country wants everyone to vote when he becomes or she becomes adult, he can be a man, he can or she can be a woman, rich or poor, or say white or black, it doesn't matter. So if everyone is allowed to vote, that is called as universal adult franchise. Universal adult franchise, or you can say universal suffrage. Universal suffrage. So early democracy were established in Europe, North America, and Latin America. And there was the end of colonialism. That is, various countries were actually the colonies of various European countries. So many countries became democracies immediately after the end of the Second World War in 1945. But most of them could not remain democracies for long. Ghana, for example, a country in Western Africa, used to be a British colony. And Ghana was named at that time as Gold Coast. Now Ghana, it became independent in 1957. So it was among the first countries in Africa to gain independence, and it also inspired all other countries in the African region to struggle for freedom. Now here is Nkrumah, okay, and he is called Nkrumah. So this person was very active in the independence struggle of Ghana. So he first became the prime minister when Ghana got independence, then he became the president. But he did something wrong. He elected himself president for life, but this was not accepted by the people there, or the country didn't agree to this. So in 1966, Nkrumah, he was overthrown by the military. So like Ghana, we took the example of Ghana, most countries that became democracies after gaining independence had a very mixed record, as you see. And I have to tell you one thing, that New Zealand was the first country to award or to allow the universal adult franchise, that is the universal suffrage, in way back in 1893. Then Russia, Germany, Netherlands, Britain, Sri Lanka, Turkey, France, Japan, then India. So in India, 1950, we gave universal adult franchise, that everyone who is adult, who is above 18 years of age, 18 plus, he or she can vote. So what is the recent phase? After 1980, democracy started spreading more quickly. And since the disintegration of Soviet Union in 1991, it accelerated the process, because Soviet Union was quite stronger at that time. So Soviet Union comprised of 15 republics which emerged as independent countries, and most of them took to democracies. Democracy was revived in several countries of Latin America also. Pakistan and Bangladesh, our padosi, our neighbors, they made a transition from army rule to democracy in 1990s. But there is certain things which changed in Pakistan. Changes were not permanent in Pakistan. As in 1999, we are talking about Pakistan in 1999, General Pervez Musharraf, he brought back army rule. Something happened in Nepal also. First, the king gave up many of his powers to become a constitutional monarch, that he will remain as a monarch, as a king, but under the constitution, to be guided by elected leaders. So there will be a proper type of democracy. He agreed to that. But in 2005, in Nepal in 2005, the king of Nepal dismissed these elected members, that is elected government, and took back the political freedom from these people, those had won in the previous decade. So again, the monarchy came back. And if we talk about one more, our neighboring country, Myanmar, Burma, we know, it's a neighboring country of India. It gained freedom from colonial rule in 1948. So Burma or Myanmar, 1948 they got the independence and they formed the democracy. But in Myanmar also, there was a military coup. In 1962, there was a military coup in Burma, and this ended the democratic rule. And here comes Aung San Suu Kyi. Aung San Suu Kyi. So the National League of Democracy, it was led by Aung San Suu Kyi. And she won the election in 1990. So Aung San, if you see here, she is Aung San Suu Kyi. She won the election in 1990. But because it was a military coup, the military leaders of Myanmar refused to step down and they did not recognize the election result of Aung San Suu Kyi. She won. And these military leaders, they just didn't recognize the election result. But what they did instead, the military put the elected pro-democracy leaders and also Aung San Suu Kyi under the house arrest. So in Myanmar, if anyone is caught publicly airing their views or issuing some statements critical to the regime or military regime, he or she can be sentenced up to 20 years in prison. And this happened to Aung Suu Kyi also. Due to this very difficult situation, coercive policies and military ruled government in Myanmar, about 6 to 10 lakhs, and this is a very large number because Myanmar is a small country. So 6 to 10 lakh people in the country that have been uprooted from their homes and they took shelter elsewhere, like in Thailand, like some in India also. So despite being in a house arrest, Aung San Suu Kyi, she continued the campaign for democracy. She wanted democracy. And her continuous struggle, won international recognition, and she has also been awarded the Nobel Peace Prize. She is a Nobel Prize winner. Yet the people in Myanmar are still struggling to establish the democratic government in their country. And by 2005, about 140 countries were upholding multi-party elections. That is the main sign of a democracy, higher than ever before. Now we'll talk about the international organizations. We have heard about the First World War, Second World War, and what was the bloodbath. People were fighting, countries were fighting. So all these came, as a very, very, you can say, worst memory for the people who came after. So people came together, the world leader came together, and they formed the United Nations. They formed the international organizations. So there is no government of the world, we are talking about international organization, there is no government of the world that can pass any law that will apply to all people of the world, because every country is different, every country is ruled by different people, have different government. So, but there is many institutions in the world that perform partially the function of such a government. And these organizations cannot command countries. They can't even command the citizens in a way of government can, because government can only control the citizens of the country. But they do make rules that put limits on what governments can do. As we see that Germany did what, and after that USA did it on Japan. So all these things can be stopped. That's why we have international organization. So what are these international organizations? We have first of all the United Nations. Now United Nations, it is a global association of nations of the world to help cooperation in international law, security and economic development and social equity. So this United Nations security, or you can say Secretary General, is a chief administrative officer. The second one is United Nations Security Council or Suraksha Parishad. So this is an organization, or you can say an organ of United Nations, and this is responsible for maintaining peace and security among countries. So it can put together it has its own international army, and take action against the wrongdoer. Any country doing wrong things, the UN Security Council can take action. Then for the money matters, we have International Monetary Fund, IMF, and World Bank. So we have IMF and World Bank. So this lends money to governments who, when they need it, before lending, they ask the concerned government to show all the accounts, and it may direct also to make changes in its economic policy. So are these decisions democratic? Or let me take you to some examples what is happening in UN also, right? So the institution functioning as world government do not hold democratic decisions. That is, the institution we are talking about, they do not hold democratic decisions. Not every country has free and equal say in the decisions that affect them. So in United Nations also, there is a lack of democracy. Every country is treated differently. Let us take a case study of United Nations. So by this 1st September 2012, we had 193 member states of the United Nations. So member country, 193 member countries were there in United Nations, and they have one vote in the United Nations General Assembly. So this General Assembly is like a parliament where all the decisions takes place. So this General Assembly meets regularly, yearly sessions, under the president elected from among the representative of the member countries. But this General Assembly cannot take any decision about what action should be taken if there is a conflict or fight, or there is a problem between two countries. So if there are two countries and they have some conflict, this General Assembly, the main assembly, cannot take any decision. Who can take the decision? The 15-member Security Council of UN can take such crucial decisions. So this 15-member of Security Council can take the decision. And in this 15, there are 5 permanent members. Who are these? US, America, that is, Russia, UK, France, China. And there are other 10 members. And these 10 members are they have 2-year terms. So they just change after 2 years. So the real power lies with these 5 members. US, Russia, UK, France, China. Each permanent member has a veto power. What is a veto power? That means if these 5 members, these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, if anyone says no, that is, it means that council cannot take a decision if any permanent or one of these 5 members says no to that decision. If one says no, that decision cannot be taken, and this is the veto power they have. So this system has led more and more people and countries to protest and demand that the UN should be democratic. UN become more democratic, because even the United Nations is not democratic. The permanent members, especially the United States, it contributes or gives more money, or most of the money needed for the maintenance of United Nations. That is why you find everything is done by United States. Every war, you will find US there. And if you talk about IMF, International Monetary Fund, so this IMF is one of the biggest money lenders, you can say, bank for any country in the world. So it has, by 1st September 2012, it has 188 member states, but the problem is all of them do not have equal rights or equal voting rights. The vote of each country is weighed by how much money it has contributed to the IMF. The country which is contributing more, the power of or the weight of the vote will be higher. More than 52% of the voting power in this IMF is in the hands of only 10 countries. United States, Japan, Germany, France, UK, China, Italy, Saudi Arabia, Canada, and Russia. Only these 10 countries have 52% the weight of their vote, or they have more say in IMF. So the remaining 178 countries, they have very little say in how these international organizations take decision. When we take the case of World Bank also has similar system of voting. That is, the president of World Bank has always been a citizen of the United States, US, and he is nominated by whom? He is conventionally nominated by the finance minister of US. Okay, so this is how, again, there is no democracy. So democracy promotion, I'll take you to one example how this United States and other Security Council member, they may do things wrong. Iraq is a country in Western Asia which became independent from British rule in 1932. So we are talking about Iraq. Now 3 decades later, there was a series of coups by military officers in Iraq. So since 1968, it was ruled by Arab Socialist Ba'ath Party, and this Ba'ath Party leader was Saddam Hussein. And he played a very key role in this 1968 coup that brought this Arab Socialist Ba'ath Party to power. So this government abolished traditional Islamic law and gave women the right to vote, and several freedoms not granted to other Western or West Asian countries. After Saddam Hussein, he became the president in 1979. Saddam Hussein ran a dictatorial, that is, he became a dictator and that government, and suppressed any dissent or opposition to this rule. So if you see, this Iraq has mostly, most population as Shia, and minority population as Sunni, and then very less population of Kurds. Now Saddam Hussein is Sunni. He was from Sunni, faith of religion, and because Shia was majority, so Sunni, because he was Sunni, he used to, you can say, suppress Shia and Kurds, because Shia were the majority and they were not ruling the state. So that is why he was ruling it. He was suppressing them. So the US and allies like Britain alleged that the Iraq possessed secret nuclear weapon. United States said that Iraq is having nuclear weapon. Another weapon of mass destruction, nuclear weapon, chemical weapon like this, which posed a big threat to the world. So what happened? When UN team went to Iraq to see and search for these weapons, which United States and other countries are being claiming, United Nations did not find anything there. But still, US and its allies, they invaded Iraq, occupied it, and removed Saddam Hussein from power in 2003. And now the US installed the Shia-backed government, that is, the interim government of its preference. So this government was preferred by US. And it is argued that it was important to end the dictatorial rule of Saddam Hussein and set up a democratic government in the country. And after that, Iraq is still in turmoil. If you see, wherever US has gone, wherever US has poked their nose, that country is devastated. Syria, you see the example of Syria. This country was a beautiful country with Damascus as the most important and beautiful place. Now this is ruined. So whenever Iraq and allies, this United States and allies, they just go and bomb these countries just finish it up. They are done. They are dead country. So the war against Iraq was not authorized by United Nations Security Council, Kofi Annan, the UN Secretary General at that time. And United Nations head, he was saying that this US war on Iraq was actually illegal. So these are the words we talked about: censorship, coalition, colony, communist state, coup, martial law, political prisoners, referendum, state, strike, trade union, veto. And you just need to go them once more, because the question may come from here. So this is all about this topic. Thank you so much and take care of yourself.